Hello there, and welcome to our coverage of the new Little House on the Prairie reboot 2026 on Netflix. I'm Steve Barnes from Sweet Child of Time, and I'm here with
Lindsay Dunn, one of my stories.
And we are talking about this Little House reboot now. We've actually seen it. We're allowed to talk about it now because it's hypothetically after July 9th. So we're okay to do this. Lindsay, have you been biting your tongue for like a month now or what?
I don't know. It can be hard to when you're in a Facebook group and people are talking about it and saying what they hope it's not or what they hope it is. It can be kind of hard not to say, well, don't worry, XYZ, but yeah.
It's real hard to do that because, everybody had, not everybody, I'd say about 60% of the Little House community had either ambivalence or negative things to say about this reboot. And hopefully by the time they're hearing this, hopefully they've seen it because we're going to spoil everything that happens in season 1. So if you haven't watched season 1 yet, please go back and watch it all and then come back to hear us. But we can finally talk about what Jocko asked me. He asked me, how did you like this show, Steve? Have you seen it? So we can finally do that. I'm going to give you the choice, though, ladies' choice. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
You can go.
Okay. I'm going to be very freely admitting here that when I watched the first episode, I was okay with it. I liked Laura. I liked Mr. Edwards. I liked Charles. Not to say I didn't like anybody else, but they were kind of some standouts to me. But I didn't like love it. I wasn't like putting my arms around it and like I didn't cry at the end. And then when I watched episode 2, I started feeling a little weird about it. And I think what happened was I kept telling myself, don't compare it to the show. Do not compare it to the show. This is a different thing from the show. But then I found myself doing that anyway, especially in episode 2, which was very unfortunate because like the last scene of episode 2 kind of left a really bad taste in my mouth because I wasn't sure why they were choosing to like show this scene that I thought was so weird in the books and the show. So I, of course, soldiered on because our point was to do this podcast and to talk about the season. So by this time that I'm talking right now, I've seen all 8 episodes multiple times, and I have a much more favorable opinion of it now. But it was really upsetting to me that I saw the first 2 episodes and I had kind of a strong negative reaction to it. So I'm afraid, therefore, that others will do the exact same thing, but they won't have like the wherewithal or like the impetus to keep watching like we did because we were, we committed ourselves to watching the whole thing and talking about it and even interviewing people for it. So I did not want to give up for that reason. So I guess I'll go into like what I really thought about the whole season. I thought that it followed the events of the books very well, very faithful. And it even like pulled in a lot of really small moments from the book that meant a lot to book readers. For example, like that one scene, Charles Ingalls starts acting like a mad dog. And that's like a really fun scene in the book that he does to like not just once, but multiple times to the kids where he pretends he's a mad dog and chases around the house. And so I thought, little things like that really stood out to me. There were many more examples than that, but that's the first one that came to my mind just now. I said before, I really like the casting of Laura. I said that last episode, and I still stand by that. I really like this actress that plays her. And I really like Mr. Edwards a lot. We said last time we debated whether or not he was handsome, and I think he is very handsome, and I think he's a very good character to the show. And I like the way his character comes around to a full circle and towards the end of the episode. I really appreciated that Carolyn portrayed more of a Carolyn Ingalls that was more to the books than the show. She was nothing like, Carolyn Grassley, what's her name, that played Laura Ingalls in the original show. They're nothing alike. They don't play the same character. And I think that this Crosby Fitzgerald does, in my opinion, a stronger job of portraying Caroline. I was happy that Jack looked like Jack, and I was very happy that they included in the indigenous characters and they included in Dr. Tan. They decided to make him a regular in this season and give him something in every episode. And I really enjoyed his performance and I enjoyed his character. And like I said, I just was really happy with all the inclusion of the book details and how they paid homage to it. What I didn't like about the series, and I think this is kind of what I was seeing during episode 1 and 2, and then after a while just kind of got used to it, is I kind of felt like a lack of connectivity between the characters. And I felt like there was like an emotional punch that I wasn't feeling for some reason. And I don't think it's the fault of the actors or even the writers, but I just think that like it just didn't quite hit a tone that was strong enough to make me score it highly. I'm very happy that they included the Osage storyline into this, but I was not exactly thrilled with the climax of that culminated in episode 7. I felt that could have been a much stronger arc, and I just felt it was a little bit lacking. So I think all in all, I would just give this an average rating. If I was going to rate it between a 5 scale, I would give it a solid 2.5. Because I liked the show, but I didn't love the show like I was hoping that I would. And thankfully, I found that I wasn't disappointed by the show. That was kind of a roller coaster ride there, wasn't it, Lindsay? There's a lot going on in my review. But I'm just trying to be honest with how I felt. I'm not happy with all that, but that's where I land.
I'm curious about and I know what the scene is, and we'll get into it, but you mentioned at the end of episode 2 that you were thrown off by them including a certain scene.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you had just recently read that book, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Right before I'd seen this, yes.
Okay. So I'm guessing that could have an impact that other people might watch that scene and they won't have read the books as freshly as you.
Sure.
So I imagine that may not mean the same thing to them as it did to you. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about people tapping out. I think you had a strong reaction because you were just very nervous about where they were going with it and what they might include.
Yep.
I don't mean to be sly about it. We'll get there when we get there for episode 2, because I don't know if Steve mentioned this, but what we're going to do now is we're briefly going to go through each episode and kind of talk about the highlights.
Yeah.
So for my overall reactions, I would say for me, the strongest part of the show, the most interesting part of the show came in with the disputes with the Osage people, or not just the disputes, but the connection with them and kind of figuring out how we can perhaps live together or not, how we can share this land, how we can all make a home here. That for me, that was definitely the most intriguing plot line for the entire season 1. Those were the parts where I was really tapped in. And there's one episode where they kind of explore that specifically. That's, not even with the highlighting of the conflict itself, which is given full attention in the last couple episodes. But there's an episode where they kind of all work together for a particular plot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that those interpersonal relationships were very interesting. Steve disagreed. We had our strongest argument about that episode. So, but I think that, and this is okay. So for me, the overall is that this show, this Netflix version, is perhaps focuses a lot more on the hardship angle of what the family's going through. The pilot episode in the original Little House did that a little to test out what kind of material the audience would respond to. But much of the story in the original series was about family connections and relationships. And while they might have been set in the past, they still felt incredibly real, but they were also somewhat idealistic. They were what we want families to be. We watched the Little House family, the Ingalls family in the original series, and we kind of wanted our family, to be like that. And in the original Little House series, there were hardships, but it was a way to show how close the family was in their bond.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, it feels more like the hardships are more about plot and to have something for them to do. And I know they're trying to represent the books, but it kind of felt like, oh, we need to make this scene happen or this action happen, as opposed to kind of weaving it into the narrative in a way that made sense. And so that's why it sort of lacked the emotional component to it, is that for them, and Jocko said this, they wanted to be a faithful adaptation of the books. So they're more focused on what events or scenes are we going to put into these episodes. And then they tried to kind of weave the plot around having those events happen, as opposed to making them feel like natural actions that happen because of who the characters are. So it was more plot driven than character driven, maybe, in the way that they did it. And I'm more of a character person. You may be too. More of a character person. So again, we don't want to compare it, but it's hard to not compare it.
Sure.
So in the original, Pa always does what's right. He's a protector. Ma is gentle and sweet, although a little stuck up at first. And the kids are very supportive of each other. Mary and Laura are each other's best friends. And that part about the sister relationship was really important to me and felt very true in my life. My sister always came to my defense, no matter what. If I was like, she would pick on me, but if she ever saw anybody else pick on me, she would get pissed and be like a cougar, not a cougar, a tiger. She would just be like, who's taking on my sister? You know, so Mary and Laura's relationship always felt really real to me. And in this case, the sisters seemed like they were fighting a lot. Charles and Carolyn were fighting a lot. So this family is more realistic or more like representative of a dysfunctional family that might seem more like realistic to TV today. But in their attempts to make it more real, they lost some of what we wanted, which was just a family enjoying being together. And yeah, it just felt more in service of the plot, pushing the story forward. There's less little sweet moments that happen for a second and then they move on to the next thing. So this show is more like challenging, not as rosy, not as nostalgic. And I think in the original Little House, we kind of wanted to be with them. We would be like, "Ooh, I'd like to be there right now. This looks like they're having fun. This looks like they're a great family you'd want to be around." And here they're more showing how grueling it was and how easily you could die. So it's naturally not as fun and enjoyable in that way. So all they really have is they'd have to have really good writing. And I don't think the writing is as strong as it could be because of that. The plot driven thing is that maybe that was their focus instead of making it seem like point A led naturally to point B. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because I did kind of feel that loss of emotional punch. I didn't know why. And I think that you kind of did a good job of explaining why. So what would you give it if you were to do like a 1 out of 5 stars like I did? Where is your star meter going to fall?
Well, I mean, I'm a kind reviewer. So I'd probably be like, give it, right in the middle, either 2.5 or a 3.
Okay. So yeah, I think we got the same gist out of this show. It sounds like.
Yeah.
We liked different things and we disliked different things, but it sounds like we landed in the exact same place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am looking forward to season 2 and I will watch it regardless of what happens because I want to see, I really want to see Nellie Olson really. So
it's all about Nellie Olson for you, isn't it?
I mean, I was going to say this in the last episode. I'll say it in this episode. It made my week, man, when I was talking about one of the episodes of the raccoon. And I was like saying like I was worried about the dog and the raccoon fighting. And then Allison Arngrim herself like comes to the rescue and is like, "Hey, what's up? This is what happened on set with the dog and the raccoon." It was so cool that like Nellie Olson herself is like giving us inside info and like setting my mind at rest that, that these animals didn't get hurt. That episode was, have you seen the episode, The Raccoon, by the way?
I know which episode you're talking about. That's one that I would like to revisit again.
The fight scene is intense.
I don't remember it. I know everybody's sobbing and crying at the end because there's like the reunion with the beloved raccoon. Jasper, I think was his name.
And he can do his little hand movements. But we're talking about the new show, not I'm the one who brought that up. I'm so sorry.
So I think we're going to now move into our sort of episodic mini recaps, right, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. If you don't mind, I will kind of lead us on the first one, and then I'll let you kind of lead us on the second one, and we'll kind of take turns.
You should probably lead us in. I only really have a lot of notes for the first couple. You should probably lead the whole darn thing.
Oh, I'm the leader. Heck yeah.
I'll chime in if I have some thoughts about anything you said,
I hope you do. Episode 1 is called Independence, because that's where they end up going. This is when the Ingle family moves from Wisconsin to Independence, Kansas, surviving a treacherous river crossing where they temporarily lose their dog, Jack. Then upon arrival, they claim a plot of land and face the stark reality of frontier vulnerability. That's just like a general overview. Some of the key moments that I pointed out here was Carolyn having a mini panic attack after that river crossing, which I very much appreciated. It's showing some like you were saying, the show is more gritty than the original. And Carolyn survives this river crossing and she immediately throws up and she's having this panic attack. And I just love the realism. That really caught my eye immediately. They meet Dr. Tan.
Let me ask you about that. The panic attack, where do you get that from? Because I know she threw up, but I was like, something's revealed. Never mind.
Oh.
But obviously she's upset. I did see, Charles comes to comfort her and she pushes him away.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure.
No, you're right.
She's upset.
The throw up.
She's upset
that could
and
easily
she's not feeling
be
well
because
this river crossing.
In this episode,
yeah.
Yeah, she's revealed to be pregnant. She meets Dr. Tan. Dr. Tan apparently sat on a rock and watched that whole crossing. And he comforts her as she comes across. And I think it's later on when it's revealed that she's pregnant in this episode. So right off the bat, last episode, you and I were like, where's Carrie? Well, here she is. She's inside Caroline's belly.
I was afraid that I wasn't supposed to say she was pregnant yet. I'm sorry. That's why I was like, what? Oh. Wait a second. Oh, she's not feeling well.
I mean, I took the vomit as a nervous reaction from what just happened to them. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It could be midday morning sickness that made her throw up there. What other key moments here? Her pessimism. You can see Carolyn's pessimism contrasting sharply with Charles's eternal optimism, because he does play the optimist. Well, he always is. That's just what he's known as. We meet some of the neighbors. We meet the Mitchells, who are an Osage family. It's kind of interesting. They're called the Mitchells. It's like a really white name, William Mitchell. But they're the most successful, highly assimilated Osage family in town. They have a very modern looking home. They have a crucifix in their home, which tells me they're probably Christian. And even though they meet these Mitchells, Carolyn definitely harbors some prejudices. That trait of Carolyn from the book, being scared of the native population, that carries through right here into our show. She kind of carries that same prejudice a little bit. We meet Mr. Edwards. We meet a real traumatized Mr. Edwards, actually. Is this the episode that... Yes, this is the episode that I'm going to talk about in a second, where he has a really sketchy moment and we're not too sure about this Mr. Edwards fellow. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and talk about it now. He meets the neighbor and he has a claim shanty which is a common thing they did. I think I might have discussed this on a previous episode. But when the settlers would come and they would claim their plot of land, they had to build a structure on it, and they had to live in that structure for at least 6 months out of the year in order to claim the property. So Mr. Edwards just has a real kind of ramshackle shack, doesn't even have a door on it. We see a family photo inside, so we know he's a family guy, and he's a cat guy. He's got some cats in there and some kittens. And he seems like he's all affable and they're having kind of a good time. But Charles mentions the name Laura, and that kind of triggers a really crazy reaction to Mr. Edwards. And I believe he pulls a gun on Charles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think the reason is because the name Laura triggered him, because he had a Laura in his life previously. And then William Mitchell, this Osage fellow I'm talking about, he shows up kind of like a miracle just in time to save the situation. And later on in the episode, Mr. Edwards comes back around to kind of apologize to Charles and try to make nice. And Charles is a little leery of him, but he accepts his help anyway, accepts his hand. And let's see, Mr. Edwards also lets Charles know that this is Osage land that he's on, and it might not be just a cut and dry transaction. hey, I moved here. Now this is my land. Mr. Edwards is like, not quite.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to do a little research on that one, Charles.
Yeah, his kind of demeanor about that is weird and kind of bleeds over to the next episode. But he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. But he makes the statement that, I don't know, fortune favors the bold or something. Like,
yeah,
he's like, this is their land, but you might as well try to take it. I mean, it was kind of like, I wasn't sure where that was going. I mean, Mr. Edwards seems to be very much, he's revealed to be perhaps more connected to the Osage than the rest of the town.
Yeah.
They've got an understanding, which is why Mr. Mitchell was visiting him. They have a good relationship, at least. It might not be all of the Osage, but with the Mitchells, at least, Mr. Edwards, they have a connection. So I thought it was interesting that on the one hand, he's saying, hey, it's their land. Just know this isn't going to be a clean sale. But then he's also like, but go for it, dude. Stay anyway. Maybe it'll work out.
You're kind of like left scratching your head about this Mr. Edwards guy after the first episode, because like at first he seems nice, then he pulls a gun, then he's nice again, then it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was going to say like the main theme seems to be the family doing without and this looming pressure of manifest destiny coming. That's repeated a few times in this first episode to kind of let you know what to expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm being as brief as possible because we have 8 episodes to go to, but do you have anything else with episode 1 you wanted to bring up?
Were you going to comment on this cry counter, or were you saving
that? I wanted to see, I wanted to count in every episode, because Charles Ingalls Michael Landon will cry almost every single episode of Little House. So I wanted to, see if our new Charles Ingalls was going to follow suit. So far, yes, he does cry in this episode. So check. We got Charles crying. So far, I'm happy.
I don't remember Michael Landon crying every episode. That's funny. I remember maybe a family member crying every episode, but I didn't know that it was always Michael Landon that needed the tissues. Okay.
I noticed. I don't know. I noticed.
So a couple of things that I thought were interesting about this episode is that the intro was a little comedic, and that Laura proves to be a very unreliable narrator. She makes the statement that they started out in Wisconsin, and then she says that that Mom wanted to stay, but Pa said it was too crowded. And then they show the house, and there's nothing around. It's like it's the house in the woods. It's like, how is this too crowded exactly? Then she makes the statement that every day and night was an adventure, and they were happy because they were a family and together. And I'm like, that is not what we see. We are seeing you guys, you and Mary fighting every 5 minutes, and Pa and Ma are fighting every 5 minutes. So I'm not sure where she was getting this idea from. That was a very idealistic beginning, and it kind of made me laugh.
She also says nobody came to say goodbye to them when they left the house in Wisconsin, which is also not true, because in the book, it's distinctive. There's a huge party when they leave. So I guess that's one thing that they did not carry over to the show.
Yeah. I remember in the show, there's a scene where the family's saying goodbye, but I don't remember if it was in the books or not, what was represented. But, the family has conflicts. Ma feels less confident that they should have come, but she promised to follow Charles anywhere. The Caroline in the first series was always smiling, positive, and didn't challenge Charles. This Caroline has her own agency and her own opinions. They're always clashing. The sisters fight more. Mary is established as the one that had more friends and a life at home that she misses. Laura is more of a loner. Her best friend is Jack. She hunts with a slingshot, and she knows how to tell really good stories. So I thought they gave them very distinct personalities as sisters. And Mr. Edwards, he was interesting because in the original show, he was always the comedic relief.
That's right. Yep.
But there was an episode where he was suicidal, and, he's revealed to have some mental health issues, but it was really only one episode. And in this show, right away, it's established that he's a hermit. He spends a lot of time alone. He probably has some mental health issues, and that, spending time alone has not been good for him.
Yeah, that's right.
So I thought it was interesting that their portrait of Mr. Edwards is quite different, and they set it up right away that he's not always doing well. So maybe he could be helped just as much, like from having a connection with the Ingalls. It won't just be about helping them. It will be about helping him too.
Yeah, sure. All right. I'm going to move on to episode 2. They call this one The House on the Prairie. This is the one where Mr. Edwards comes and he helps the Ingalls build their cabin until Carolyn discovers his serious drinking problem. And this is a trigger from her past. And this is actually a trigger to the real life Carol Ingalls. What she says in the show here really happened to the real life Carol Ingalls, whereas a ship captain who was drunk, severely drunk, not just a little bit drunk, but, off his rocker, capsized a ship, which in turn, killed her father. And she recounts the story to Mr. Edwards here, and she's pretty upset about the whole situation. She don't want to see no drinking on the property. So he disappears, and this prompts a series of frantic searching. This is the searching episode. Some key moments here are when Laura and Mary get lost on the Osage Road while they're looking for Mr. Edwards. Because at one point in this show, Mr. Edwards and Laura are hanging out, and she notices this Osage Road, and Mr. Edwards tells her a story about it and is like, one day I'm going to go down that road. Laura remembers this, and they go down that road, and then they get lost because they're kids.
Can you say, like, what is the Osage Road? I think maybe you need to explain what that is. It's not a
sure. Yeah, it's like a hit. There's a field, and it's kind of a hidden road. You would only notice this road if you were kind of looking for it. And Mr. Edwards points this out to her. And it's just a path in the woods that's probably a few miles long that leads from like where the Osage have their camp out or where their homestead is. And when they come into town, they use this particular road to cut through. And that's right on the Ingalls property.
I think it was like not necessarily in the woods. It was kind of in the cornfield, or like it seemed to be in their crops.
Yeah, it's not a cornfield. I just read the word for this in the last book I read, and I can't remember the name of it. But there's a certain word for this type of marshy land that has really tall grass that you can't see over top of, that you kind of like traverse through like a jungle in a way. Yeah. And that's how they get lost. And in that key moment when they get lost, I'll go ahead and say this for talking about Allison Angram. She shows up in this episode. She's in episode 2, the original Nellie Olson, but she's not playing Nellie Olson. Mary and Laura run into like this group of like 3 weirdo, they're settlers too, but they're kind of sketchy folks, and you don't trust them immediately because their laughs seem kind of evil and they have shifty eyes, that type of thing. Allison Angram plays the one who coerces Laura over and tries to, talk them into hanging out with them. And this is where Mr. Edwards, the hero, shows up miraculously. This reminded me of like a Little House moment for sure, because how on earth could he have possibly shown up at this moment to save them at this exact same time? But he does it. He saves them from the evil Allison Angram.
Allison Arngram.
Arngram. Yeah, she has a fun last name. Actually, her name is shortened. I'm reading her biography right now, and her last name is even longer than that and weirder, but she shortened it for Hollywood. Let's see, some town dynamics. We got Gemma. I keep writing Jenna James, but her name is Gemma James. She shows up and she's spearheading a local temperance movement, and she wants Carolyn to get involved with that. And then later on, she's the one that organizes the search party for the girls. So you kind of have this vibe that Gemma James is like not a nice person. It's like she's not quite as evil as like a Mrs. Olsen type, but you kind of get the vibe that she's a little shifty. But then again, she is, helpful at the same time. She's offering help to Carolyn, offering to like search for the girls. So this is true community stuff here. Even the bad guys are helping out. Yeah, the Ingalls family dynamic shifts a little bit when they find out that there is a baby, because they have to tell the girls that Carolyn's pregnant, and Mary's all about it, and Laura's a little resistant to the idea. Mr. Edwards disappears, as I said before, so Charles needs somebody to help build his house. And once again, Gemma James coming to the rescue. She's like, I know this guy named Adam Scott. He's not the guy from Severance, but he's a guy who lives here in town. He's a bachelor, and he'll help you build your house here. And my last note that I'm going to say before I toss it over to you, if you have anything, is Charles does not cry in this episode, which is fine. It's fine because he probably cries like every other episode. So we'll accept that.
Is it a real episode? If he doesn't cry, I don't know. Survey says. Okay, so yeah, Gemma James, she's well resourced. That's what we can say.
Okay, sure.
She can get things organized quickly. She knows who to go to for this and that. She also sets them up with Adam Scott. Like she's a connector. It's a good thing, but she's also revealed to be a terrible busybody.
Yeah.
And I did not like her much after this episode because she is at least, I think we need to remember that she is at least partially responsible for the way Carolyn elects to treat Mr. Edwards, because she's the one that plants the seeds of doubt in Carolyn's mind. She decides to show up, Gemma James decides to show up and bring Carolyn some stuff. And, because we saw in episode 1, Carolyn didn't have a lot of money. The Ingalls didn't have a lot of money to buy things from the store, so she wasn't able to get coffee and some other things that, hey, we all want coffee in the morning. I don't know what I would do in that case. Put the eggs back, give me the coffee. So Gemma James realizes this, and she's not above. I don't think she was maybe intentionally doing this, but she's not above sort of bribing people with gifts to make them feel important, so they are kind of in her debt.
Okay. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, people do who are well-resourced, is they show up, they give you things, and then you feel a sort of indebtedness to them and might feel like, well, I should try to get along because they did this or that. But yeah, it's Gemma that sees Mr. Edwards helping them and kind of says, oh, I don't think you want him helping you. And that, maybe Carolyn wouldn't have kind of gone that direction if she didn't have those seeds planted. She made her own choice and she had her own baggage that added to it. But I was pretty pissed at Gemma James, and the end result of that is that she brings the Ingalls this wimpy looking guy. Adam Scott ends up proving himself to be somewhat resourceful. He's a short king, so, he can get things done. But initially I was pissed because I was like, Mr. Edwards is so capable. Mm-hmm. He's a hard worker, and he and Charles had a good thing going, and now you messed it up. And the thing you bring him is this little guy. So he proves to be a nice thing, but that kind of pissed me off. Yeah, Charles also has his own little mental health issue where he sees visions of his dead younger brother, George.
Oh, that's right.
And this is a theme or a trope or a thing, symbol that comes up throughout the series, is that he keeps seeing these visions of his brother, who was a drummer boy in the army. He will see him like walking about. He harbors guilt for something in the past, and there's a complicated relationship with his dad. We see that later. But yeah, I thought that the girls getting almost child napped was kind of scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad things did happen in the original series, but nothing of this sort, that I know of, had the Ingalls family almost get child napped and grabbed by the arm. So I thought that was terribly scary, although it was, once we saw that it was actually Alison Arngrim, we weren't scared anymore. We were comforted. We knew she'd never harm a fly. But yeah, I think that this kind of just this episode overall just kind of was there to cause some kind of a conflict or a challenge with the family having a friendship with Mr. Edwards. Seemed to be, he's ingratiated, he rescues them, but yet he also is revealed to have issues, and Carolyn doesn't. But, the other thing is Carolyn kind of feels bad, but she's not able to really apologize. And when she sees him bring back the girls, she kind of whispers this apology that nobody, I'm sorry. It's like, why are you whisper apologizing to yourself? So I don't know what that was all about. That maybe she wasn't sure if she was ready to forgive him or not. But
right.
So it's kind of a weird episode.
Coming from knowledge of the books, like that's the reason that she whispered it, is because she wasn't really sure if she should forgive him or not, because she has very strong feelings about alcohol and about, men who abuse it based on her real life. And then, Mr. Scott, I can appreciate you not liking him. That's okay. But I got to point out that this is a real person from real life and the books that did help Charles Ingalls build his house there. And Charles Ingalls helped Mr. Scott build his house. As a matter of fact, Mr. Scott was married in the books, and his wife, along with Mr. Tan, were the ones that helped the Ingalls family the most. And then George himself, Charles's brother, is also, based out of the Ingalls family, real life. Charles's brother, George, fought in the war, and they say when he came back from the war, he was never quite right. He was just a really wild character, and Laura was always, in the books, Laura was always really leery of Uncle George just because he was kind of a weirdo.
Before we move into episode 3, I noticed you didn't say anything about that scene at the end, so maybe you were trying to forget about it.
Yeah, well, the scene from the end is when we talk about the Osage Road and the road that Mr. Edwards showed Laura. Mm-hmm. So the Osage are on this road, and they're on their way back from a meeting, and they're going back to they've come from a hunt, and they're going back to their home. And they passed by the Ingalls family on their way. So when the Osage went on this hunt, when they passed this spot, there was no house there. There was no people there. They've been hunting for about a month or so. So they come back, and they're looking at the Ingalls family, and they're like, who are these people? Why are they here? And the Ingalls family are looking at the Osage going by, and they're in their full hunting gear. And so they feel a little, I guess threatened or a little uncertain, except for Laura. Laura is very excited to see the Osage, and she's really enjoying watching them go by. And the reason I was skeptical about this is because when this scene happens in the books, it's pretty clear that there's some animosity happening. And then the real life Laura, is really excited to see the Osage because she's been hearing so much about papooses. And she's really into babies and Osage babies and a papoose. And she sees an Osage baby on a horse, and then she's begging her father to go get that baby and bring it back to her. And she wants that baby. And she's saying this loud enough so everybody can hear her. And Charles is all like, hey, calm down, kid. You're being weird. Don't do that. So when I saw this scene getting played out in the show, I was really confused. I was like, why are you showing this moment? This was a moment that anybody reading the books in modern times is going to not really enjoy this scene and think kind of hey, Laura, you might want to tamp it back a little bit here. So I thought it was strange that they were giving elevation to this scene, but what they were doing in this TV show is they were just basically showing Laura being excited to see different people, different cultures. She was excited to see diversity. She likes adventure. So that's what they're showing in this show. And I kind of misread that because I had just read that chapter in the books. So I was kind of beside myself. Why do you want to portray this scene? But they redid it so that Laura wasn't trying to be a kidnapper. That they redid it as in Laura's just enchanted by them.
Yeah. They're more showing it to contrast her with the rest of the family. Yeah. Everybody's scared except for Laura. And as we go on, we see that she's really enthusiastic about befriending the Osage people. And she's the only one of her family that's really super interested about that, at least at first.
Yeah, she meets Good Eagle earlier in this episode. We didn't discuss that. When they went to the Edwards home and he wasn't there, but the cats were there. And I think that's when Laura meets Good Eagle for the first time and they get to, meet each other. So, yeah, I don't know. It's really weird how strongly I felt about that at the time and how embarrassed I am about that now. But I mean, it happened and I felt that way. So it must be talked about. Sweet Shot of Time is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the way we record Sweet Shot of Time. We hook up with our guests via video, and we record it on audio. Recently, we've been doing video podcasts with the cast of Time Bandits. It's easy using Zencastr. You can record video or audio. You can also edit your podcast or your video via Zencastr. Join Zencastr using my promo code Sweet Child of Time, and you can get 30% off Zencastr. If you're ready to start your podcast, it's time to share your story. Share it with Zencastr. That promo code, once again, Sweet Child of Time at Zencastr.com.
Well, we should probably go on to episode 3. We're already 44 minutes in, so...
Oh, no! We used to didn't have much to say, so let's see.
The rest of the episodes, I haven't written any notes.
Well, we got News of the World next, is episode 3. And this is the episode where Eli, towards the beginning of the episode, Eli is making a big speech in front of the post office because the post office is now here. Let's see, the local railroad and land deal spearheaded by Eli James in this episode later on is starting to fracture a bit. The Osage people make themselves at home in the Ingalls cabin. I guess that's the first thing we should talk about. This episode, I'm not sure if they did this in the show. It doesn't matter if they did this in the original show or not. In this show and in the books, what is happening is the Ingalls had built their home right by the Osage Road. And the Osage are kind of running out of supplies because there's a lot of settlers in town needing supplies. So in this show, the Osage, the younger Osage, I'm talking about like the kids, I suppose, the teenagers and the young men, they like to go and what they call collect rent from the settlers who are illegally on their land. They go into their house. They don't beat anybody up. They don't wreck things, but they just go in there and they take what they want because they feel like it's owed to them. I think at one point, it might be this episode that little Puma is like, look, she's offering us like some jam, but this jam came from berries that they illegally picked from our land. So this is really our jam. Mm-hmm. You know, they kind of have like a very 1867 kind of logic about this. Laura, on the other hand, she feels very threatened and betrayed by this because she keeps up throughout the whole season. She's enamored by the Osage. Like her best friend later on becomes an Osage girl. And she is like honoring the Osage when she sees them by leaving these little gifts for them, like flowers and stones and stuff where she knows the ladies hang out. And then the next thing she knows, there's these 2 dudes in her house, like taking stuff without even asking. So Laura's pretty upset about this turn of events and the way these guys are handling it. Charles, of course, gets to the bottom of everything. He vows to make it right. He goes back to the Mitchell's home to talk to William Mitchell about this. And as it turns out, it was part of the Mitchell household that received some of these items. One of the items that gets taken from their home is the porcelain shepherdess, which is like this porcelain doll that is famous in the Ingalls family, the book, the old show, the new show. It's carried over. And in this show, Little Puma or Little Puma's buddy takes that shepherdess, and that's what upsets Carolyn more than anything else, is that this precious item that she carried across country has been stolen from her. Charles gets that back for her by the end of this episode and tries to make things nice. But in this episode is when Carolyn is also kind of wising up to like, hey, Charles, are you sure it was okay to come here? Is this really free land? I'm kind of getting the vibe that you're not telling me the whole picture here. Charles has to admit to her, like, yeah, I've been kind of treating you like a kid and telling you everything's okay, and everything's not quite okay. And it's at this moment that they have this realization that Mary comes in and faints at their very feet at a very prophetic moment. As it turns out, she has the beginning stages of malaria. We don't find that out this episode, but next episode, they make it very clear. They do allude to it because this episode starts out, they're like battling mosquitoes. And of course, we know now that's where the malaria came from. And Laura makes a point to say that mosquitoes don't bother me, but they're bothering the heck out of everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the Charles not telling her is he just found out himself. You know, he just found out in the last 2 episodes that the land claims were not legit. So, I mean, I think he's just wrestling with that concept So I didn't see it as him hiding anything from her. He just hadn't shared it yet because I think he was still trying to wrap his head around it.
Okay.
But for her, she's like, oh, he's left me out of this conversation. And also, he wasn't there when they came. So she's the one that had to deal with it.
Right.
And be scared. But I don't know. I didn't get the feeling. I know Laura is really wanting to befriend them. But I didn't get the feeling that Laura felt super betrayed by that because she was the one that was like, hey, my mom's got great cornbread. You want some cornbread? Here's some jam.
Well, no, at the time she wasn't. But like later on when she was talking to Charles about it, that's when she was like shedding tears. And that's when she was saying these things like, I've been leaving them gifts and they come in here and they steal our stuff. Like she directly says that later on.
Right.
I think at the time she's trying to make the best of the situation as she can.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She doesn't care about the food either. It's when they steal the shepherdess. That's when Laura feels betrayed.
Because Ma's upset and Ma's upset and then she doesn't, that's what bothers her is seeing that. So I guess the only other thing I want to say is, you mentioned Lacey Aubert, but she wears pants.
That's right.
She's quite a unique character. She's so it's not just there's indigenous people, but there's ladies walking around wearing pants.
That's right.
Living life in risky ways.
French ladies. Yeah, and of course Laura loves that. Anything different Laura likes.
Yeah.
What are some other key moments that happened in this episode? This is when Carolyn starts talking about not wanting to, but the fact that they need to like have a teacher in town. And we learn that she has some skills in that regard. She's been a teacher for a couple of semesters.
Right.
And we have Caleb. Caleb is a guy that works in the general store. And in this episode, he and Mary finally talk and they exchange some letters back and forth. So it's pretty clear Mary is also making friends, not just Laura. Mm-hmm.
And Little Puma is White Sun's brother, and that's why he is over at their house.
Yeah, I didn't catch that connection the first time through. The second watch, everything was very obvious. But the first watch, I was still kind of confused as to how people were related. And I was like, why is he in their house? Oh, it's her brother. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Little Puma. All right. I'm going to move on to episode 4. This is The Life Let Us Cherish. And this is the malaria episode. I think anybody listening to this will remember the whole malaria episode. An outbreak ravages Independence, striking down the entire Ingalls family. Eventually, Dr. Tan is hunting for quinine throughout the town. We cut to him like 3 or 4 times looking around for it. And he has to face a hoarding town person, a.k.a. Gemma James, before obtaining a supply from Lacey finally. This is when Gemma James really shows her true colors here. You hinted before about, how she's well off and she has connections and she can do things for people, but at a price. And here it becomes apparent that she's been hoarding up this medicine, quinine, which helps relieve the symptoms of malaria. And nobody else in town has it. She has enough for the entire town, but she's not letting any of it go. And Dr. Tan is begging her / threatening her, putting his foot in the door. Like, people are going to die if you don't do this. And she's like, nobody in my family is going to die. And that's when we know Gemma James sucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, interest with Dr. Tan, the reason he knows she has it is because Mrs. Henderson or Ms. Henderson turns him on to the fact that Gemma James bought my entire supply of quinine, which is why I don't have any. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. She was hoarding. She didn't just buy what she needed. She bought the entire supply, and that's why he couldn't find any at the store because It was all sucked up by Gemma James just in case she needs it for a rainy day. Because the doctor was even going to pay her or like bring some back to replace it. But no, there was no negotiating with Gemma James. She needs her own song.
Yeah, speaking of songs, there's a lot of songs and singing in this series. And that is also true to the books. I'm not a big fan of like songs and singing in either books or TV shows or movies. But yeah, they do that quite a bit. And the songs that they sing here are either songs from the period or the songs straight from the book. And Gemma James, we're not going to, the only song we could sing for her is maybe like Evil Gemma, or like, Gemma, give us your quinine or we'll kill you, or.
What do you mean? Okay, what do you mean you don't like songs or singing? Because you're always talking about what's his face from Game of Thrones is such a great songwriter. So
Who?
don't give me that.
I don't follow.
The guy who was in 1899, and you knew him from a previous show that he sang songs.
Oh yeah. Well, that's different. That was like.
That's the kind of music you like.
Well, he was putting on a performance in a tavern on a stage, and they showed like 1 minute of him doing that. So that makes sense to me. But like when, you're just hanging out, riding down the street, and you're like, hey, let's sing a song together. Like that's kind of like, oh, that's weird.
Okay.
Like even Lord of the Rings, like when they would break out in the song in Lord of the Rings, I thought that was weird too. So I'll stand by that.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Continue.
I mean, I know I stand alone on this point. I'm aware of that. It's my fault.
It's just that you're a musician, you're a songwriter. So saying you don't like music in TV shows is kind of a bizarre choice.
Well, I like my TV shows when they talk, and I like my music when they sing. So I like
I like my shows song free.
So let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to bring up Lacey Aubert. You brought her up last time around. She's the one who pretty much saves the day this time around. She lets Dr. Tan know that she has some, but the only reason that she has some is because Mr. Edwards stocked up on the quinine in case the town needed it. So we can really thank Mr. Edwards for this quinine.
Do we find that out later?
We found out this episode. Because
all she said was their loss is our gain.
Who did?
Lacey Aubert. Dr. Tan said, where did you get the quinine? And Lacey Aubert says, their loss is our gain. I never saw Mr. Edwards be the supplier.
Maybe it's revealed in a later episode. Okay. Or I thought it was this episode where she just says, just in casual conversation, she just mentions that that's where she got the quinine from. It's from Mr. Edwards.
Oh, well, that was my only note, Steve. I was gonna posit this a mystery as deep as where what happened to Woller's eye is. Where did they get the quinine? Because it's like
no mystery. Sorry.
I have to watch that again. I don't remember that. I just remember him saying, where did you get it? And she doesn't answer the question. So I don't know why she was cagey about it, unless it's because nobody's supposed to know where Mr. Edwards is right then or something. Yeah.
Well, I have all my notes here. So eventually I'll come upon that note, and I'll tell you when I do. So I'll tell you which episode it happens in. But I will continue here. The whole Ingalls family does get sick. Laura gets sick last because, like I said before, the mosquitoes don't bother her quite as much. But she does eventually catch the malaria as well. And she takes care of the family as well as she can, being little small Laura. She can't carry the big sack of grain, but she can do everything she can in her power. We definitely see her latch the horse gate. So we know it's not Laura's fault that the horses got out, because they made a point of showing us her latching the horse gate. So it's not Laura's fault. Everybody calm down. Okay. Because the horses do get out later, and we're not going to blame Laura for that. Definitely not. Yeah, it says here by notes in this episode, under resolution, Edward secretly provides the necessary quinine through Lacey. The community recovers. So that's one of my notes there. And I guess the last note is we forgot about the cry counter for last time. In the last episode, Charles did not cry, although he probably should have. And in this episode, he definitely should have cried, but he did not cry in this episode either. So no tears for George. Even though he saw like his dead brother walking around, he still didn't cry. So
when you're sick and you're hallucinating, you don't necessarily cry. You have other reactions going on, like hallucinations. One thing that's noteworthy is this is the episode where the Ingalls family and the Mitchell family finally kind of come together. because Mrs. Mitchell ends up taking in Laura at her house. It's when she's at the Mitchells that she gets sick, so Laura stays there to recover.
Yes.
And so once Ma is better, she comes over and is able to get Laura, and she thanks Mrs. Mitchell for taking care of her daughter. And they sort of have the two women have a moment, just like the girls have had a moment. So this is kind of the episode where things change between the Ingalls and the Mitchells for the better.
Yeah. I think Carolyn loses a lot of her prejudice by walking into White Sun's house. Because I think the first thing she might have heard was like White Sun singing to the lake, doing like a native prayer. Mm-hmm. But then when Carolyn comes into the home, she's looking around. She sees a crucifix. She sees like Shakespeare and Tennyson books. Mm-hmm. And she's like, wait a second. I think these people are more like me than I realized. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they do get some talking going on. I like that.
I was expecting deer huts and smoke pipes.
Exactly.
I don't know what she was expecting. It's like they have a house. They have a house that's very nice.
The nicest house in town. Yeah. I mean, everybody agrees that it's the nicest house in town.
Even nicer than the James house?
I mean, that's what people say. Like, I think when Mr. Edwards is talking to Charles about Billy Mitchell, he says something along the lines of like, he's got the most established place in town or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
They both got nice houses. Jack comes to the rescue because Laura eventually gets the malaria, starts wandering around, seeing visions too, and she passes out. And then Jack starts barking a whole bunch and like lets Caleb know that Laura is like needs help. So I think it's pretty funny. Like later in this episode, Caleb and Mary are talking. They kind of have that little bit of like tension with each other. I mean, not tension, but they like each other, but they haven't admitted it to each other yet. So there's like a little bit of apprehension between them. And then Laura just runs up and grabs Caleb in a big bear hug and is like, Caleb, thank you so much for saving me. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the reason this episode is called Life Let Us Cherish is because that apparently was Charles's grandfather's favorite hymn to sing. And so like at the end of this episode, they sing that hymn together. And so that's why it's called that. But yeah, episode 5 is the next one. This one's called A Circle of Blue Sky. And this is the one where the town expands with new businesses and plans for a church. But local anxieties spike when several horses go missing and Mr. Edwards is accused of the theft. Now, Laura didn't let those horses go. We know this. Those horses were stolen. I didn't mention before that when they first come to town during episode 3, Charles shows Carolyn this postcard like for the town of Independence, and Charles had drawn the image on the postcard. So he's kind of, helping the town out a little bit by drawing the postcards. And it's Charles who puts together the plans for the church, and he designs the church and helps get it put together. That takes place during this episode. So I think that's important because, Charles is proving his worth to the town and giving a bit of himself to the community. This was an episode that portrayed a very scary event that happened in the books as well, where Mr. Scott, the guy who's helping them build their house, they dig a well, and it's pretty shallow, actually. They only dig it about 20 or 40 feet deep, which I thought was crazy because the wells that we dig here in Virginia can be like up to 1,000 feet deep. So when they dug like 20 feet and they hit water, I was like, that looks pretty easy. All right. But what you're supposed to do is before you go into that hole, you're supposed to make sure that there's plenty oxygen down there. You're supposed to put a candle in there. And as long as the candle stays lit, there's plenty of oxygen there. Mr. Scott goes and gets an early start one morning and passes out in the well. And Charles has to hold his breath and go in there and save Mr. Scott and get him out of there. Very scary moment. And
mark against Adam Scott there. Mr. Edwards would never have done that.
No, he would have lit 5 candles probably just to be safe. But yeah, he becomes a hero, but Charles is very reluctant to be called a hero. People are patting him on the back, telling him what a good job. And he's like, oh, shucks, I'm just a man. Let's see. We start getting into the Emily Henderson, Gemma James situation here. Gemma likes to have ladies over for the ladies' social circle or like the I don't know, the temperance movement or whatever.
Women's society meeting.
There you go. But they don't mention anything about you gotten to be married or whatever. So Emily shows up, and it's obvious Gemma doesn't let her in, probably because she's black. But she uses the excuse that she's single. And she's like, this is just for married women only. Even though there's single women in there, that's Gemma's excuse to slam the door in Emily's face. Once Carolyn finds out about this, of course, she's not thrilled because she's an upright citizen. She sticks up for Emily. She eventually walks out of there, and she's at Emily's side. And I think this is when Carolyn starts cheering for Team Emily instead of Team Gemma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the rise of Gemma James continues to be something of annoyance because, I was already annoyed at her for her telling, souring Carolyn's opinion about Mr. Edwards. But then the last of the episode, she ends up not sharing her quinine while Carolyn and her family are sick, causing their recuperation to be delayed. And this never gets brought up that I know of. And it feels to me like Gemma James got away with that. And I wanted Carolyn to know what her supposed friend was up to and how she was hoarding the quinine, and that didn't get brought up. But at least here, Carolyn eventually is like, it crosses her threshold even to have Gemma James be like to be rejecting of Emily Henderson in this way, because it's revealed that Carolyn was the one that invited her, was the one that invited Ms. Henderson. And she finally gets up and leaves the room. So I was like, yes, touchdown, finally, some justice against Gemma. So just know that the hatred of Gemma James. Now, you said she's not as bad as a Harriet Olsen, but I don't know. At least Harriet Olsen was entertaining to an extent. She made me laugh. So far, Gemma's not making me laugh. She's just pissing me off.
I didn't think about the quinine situation when I made that comment. So now that I'm thinking about that in juxtaposition with this, she's worse than Mrs. Olsen. I agree with you now.
All right, I'll let you continue.
You asked me because we were kind of texting each other while we were watching this, and you texted me like weeks back, like, I really hope Gemma gets her comeuppance for this. And I'm like, just kind of minor. And what I meant by that was, like, in one of the later episodes, one of Gemma James's friends switches sides and becomes friends with Carolyn when she realizes that Gemma kind of sucks a little bit. So that's the only comeuppance that happens, is like one of her friends, becomes less of her friend. Maybe they'll all slip away eventually. I have a feeling they probably will.
Yeah. I don't know if she's going to make it into season 2.
Yeah. I mean,
she just may be a blip in our memories.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're going to come back to Independence or not, but yeah, we'll get there in a moment. The other thing that happens in this episode that's very significant is the horse thievery. So Mr. Edwards is the one that's getting blamed for this, and they even detain him. Is he drunk when they detain him? I think he is. So Eli James is keeping him holed up like in this hotel until the town marshal gets there to really deal with it. We learn the truth eventually, but what I think is important here to bring up about this is it's revealed at this time the reason that he's so like in his own head, and the reason he's an alcoholic and the reason he's a hermit is because 6 years ago, he found his family had died of chloria, and he had actually discovered their bodies. And so that's basically what's plaguing him, is the fact that he lost his family. And one of his daughters was named Laura, which is why he got so upset when Charles just mentioned the name Laura. That just kind of kicked off a chain reaction in Mr. Edwards' head. So yeah, that's his deal. He's been kind of tortured now for 6 years because of that. It's Little Puma, though. This is the guy that helps us out to find who the real horse thieves are. He's kind of known all along, but he just, for whatever reason, just didn't care, because he was like, hey, these settlers are stealing from the other settlers. That's fine with me. Maybe they'll kill each other. Maybe they'll work out better for me. But then William Mitchell, reminds Little Puma, hey, these horse thieves might come for your horses if you don't stop this. And Little Puma's like, okay, all right, I'll help you guys out. He leads them to the horse thieves. Charles, of course, is all like, hey, let's all forgive and forget. you kids run along now. And Little Puma's like, that was a bad call, dude. That was really weak. And so Little Puma has a very negative opinion of Charles from here on out, I guess.
I didn't see it that way.
Yeah, how did you see it?
I saw it that when Little Puma sees Charles, it's not that I feel like when he saw Charles do that, he's surprised because in his opinion, in his mind, in Little Puma's mind, white men love violence and they like control and power.
Oh.
So that he was expecting him to shoot these guys to show them who was boss.
So he was surprised, not disappointed.
More surprised. And, you know, he kind of says, he's like, you don't like violence, I think is what he says. And then Charles responds in some way saying that they won't come back. You know, like they know that Lacey, because Lacey's with them too. And in fact, I think it was her idea to go get Little Puma. Like she knows that he knows everything. So I can't remember. Probably Mr. Mitchell was there too, but I know it was Charles, Lacey, and Little Puma, and maybe Mr. Mitchell. It was the four of them. So it's like he knows that Lacey's a good shot, Little Puma's a good shot, Mr. Ingalls, and so like they're not going to come back. And so he tells them to leave, and he's like, no point at this. So I think that really surprises Little Puma that he would do that. And he might have thought it was weak, or maybe that's what he settled on because his ego or whatever. Like we've established he's a young guy. Yeah. He's temperamental, quick to talk. So he immediately says that it's weak or that it's a dumb thing to do. But I don't think he was necessarily scornful of his decision. I think he was more surprised because didn't Mr. Mitchell, the other thing I noticed is they said something to the effect of these guys are just young and dumb. Mm-hmm. And he and Little Puma kind of smiled at each other because Little Puma is recognizing, okay, I've done dumb things before too. Or do you remember that kind of?
I do. Yeah. Now that you're mentioning it, I'm remembering this, and yeah, I guess my perception was just completely different. And now that you're bringing these things up, it's slowly changing my perception. So this is good, actually.
That's what I liked about this episode. For me, this was my favorite episode of the season because I thought it was really exciting and there was plot, but it also seemed to make sense with the characters. I found it interesting what was going on with the women, with Carolyn and Gemma James, and then also with the girls, and Laura and Mary kind of team up with these two daughters of Mrs. James. And there's this whole thing about who are they going to like better, because Mary's the one that makes friends easier, and Laura's the one that's kind of more of a wild child, and girls don't really like her. So they're having a rivalry moment. And then with the guys, they all go on this kind of search and rescue mission together, and you got the indigenous and the white guys working together. So I just thought overall this episode was really strong. It did have a lot of plot, but it also was building their characters and kind of showing us things about them.
It was building a lot about the relationship between Laura and Mary too, like you said, because they meet Gemma James's two daughters, and at first Mary gets along with them, and then Laura gets along with them. But eventually, like a situation happens where Laura and the James girls are like teasing Mary very slightly about Caleb. And then one of the James girls says something mean about Caleb. And so this kind of sets the stage for Laura and Mary kind of being mad at each other for the next couple of episodes. Mm-hmm. So that kind of spurns out of this episode. They had kind of their moments before, but like when Laura openly teases Mary about Caleb, that kind of like that changes everything right there. Mm-hmm. The next episode is episode 6, Peace on Earth. This is the Christmas episode, the one where like the snow is dancing upon the windowsill. It's actually a brutal winter storm, actually. And it forces the Ingalls family to spend Christmas isolated. They had invited folks over to spend Christmas with them, but because of the storm, they're alone. And meanwhile, while the storm is happening, the same thing is happening in town. Dr. Tan and Emily and Caleb were supposed to be going to the Ingalls house, I believe, for Christmas, but they get snowed in, so they're stuck in Emily's store. So in the Ingalls household, Charles is playing the fiddle, trying to raise their spirits. They're having like a recreation of a Wisconsin dance-off. Carolyn in the Ingalls household gives birth to Carrie. So Carrie enters the world within this episode. She gets born on Christmas night. I guess it's 1870. Mr. Edwards eventually arrives to their household. And I think it's funny. I'm just kind of fast tracking through this episode. Mr. Edwards shows up. They name the baby Caroline after Caroline, but Mr. Edwards dubs her Carrie. So in this show, it's Mr. Edwards who names Carrie, and that's the name that they're going to call the baby going forward. Mr. Edwards also, this is also straight from the books, met Santa Claus on the way. Wow. I guess they're pals. And so Mr. Edwards is able to deliver some gifts to the kids. Then, meanwhile, over at the Henderson store, Caleb is a little standoffish. He doesn't love holidays. He's kind of a loner and doesn't have a family, and holidays are not a good time for him. Emily is the type who wants to be all cheerful and make everybody happy. So it's kind of a bummer to her that Caleb is the way he is. But Caleb comes around and talks to Mr. Tan about some of his feelings. And in the end, everybody has an okay Christmas, right?
I guess so. I didn't really have anything to say about this episode. You mentioned, not here, but when we were interviewing, there was an idea you had for a question about how Dr. Tan is able to sort of connect with Caleb in a special way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I remember that moment that Caleb's upset, Dr. Tan's able to talk to him. This is supposed to be sort of a cozy episode.
Yes. It's probably the coziest one. They got popcorn this episode, Lindsay.
There was popcorn, no popcorn in bed, though.
Well, no, but at least they had it. It's a nice treat.
I kept thinking that they were going to make it, though, like for Christmas, that Dr. Tan was going to show up and help with the birth, but he didn't. He didn't. So that was a little disappointing. I was thinking of the episode in the original series where Mr. Edwards braves the snow and ice to get there, and he's covered in snow, and like you said, he does show up, but doesn't everybody kind of show up a little bit later, almost like the next day? Or
let's see, is it the next day? Yeah, everybody comes to see the baby and have Christmas dinner the next night. That's right.
Yeah.
Before that, though, Mary and Laura are still mad at each other. Like the family's having like a great time. And Laura's like, hey, I think me and Mary are good. So she goes and tries to sit beside her, but Mary's not having it because she's still mad. I don't blame her, really. Laura is talking about her favorite Christmas previous, talking about the Christmas in Wisconsin where George and Grandma had this crazy dance off, which also was like straight from the books, too. So I was glad they paid homage to that. And Emily and Dr. Tan are talking about his marriage situation. And
tell us all, Steve. Tell us all.
They seem like they like each other, like from the get-go. Like they have this connection and they look at each other from episode 1. But, in this episode, I think it's finally revealed that he's still technically married. Mm-hmm. And they almost have a kissy moment. And I think it's the next episode that Mary and Caleb almost have a kissy moment, but they don't. But yeah, in this one, they almost kiss. They don't kiss. Then he runs back for a kiss. It's a moment, Lindsay. It happens. And yeah, Carolyn gets some money from her mom. Her mom does not like Charles, doesn't like the fact that Charles took, their family across country for this journey that they're on. So Carolyn's mom sends Carolyn a bunch of money and is like, come home, leave Charles. And Carolyn is like, hey, you know what? Let's buy a plow and stay here instead. So that's pretty damn cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Carolyn's mom is pissed, but.
Oh, the other thing that's interesting is they start opening containers in the store to make up their dinner.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's like money, right?
They had the popcorn, but then Ms. Henderson mentions different treats she's going to open. So I wish they would have spent more time telling us what those treats were. I'm thinking a lot of sweets, probably. Maybe some bonbons or whatnot, because nobody's there's not really a lot of power. So nobody's cooking a turkey in the back there. So
no, I think they're having like peppermints and I don't know, MREs perhaps. Did they have MREs back then?
Maybe some chocolates, maybe some bonbons, maybe some coffee,
Got to be coffee. Laura's drinking coffee now. She drank coffee back in episode 4, which I thought was pretty cool, but she hated it. She didn't like the stuff.
She was also sick, so it could have impacted.
She was drinking coffee
it later
to avoid being sick, because like Charles is like, drink coffee and you won't get sick.
She eventually does. I think she does end up liking coffee. Originally, she's like, "What is this?" But then later,
she like bravely chugs it down with like a determined look on her face, like, "Yeah, I'm a man," or whatever. All right, episode 7. This is the softer note in the sound of the wind, and this is the Osage confrontation episode. But first, the town gathers to welcome a new pastor, but deep political unrest shadows the celebration as the government pressures the Osage tribe to sign away their land for $1.25 an acre. So Charles attends this tribal council and realizes that the government flyers were highly misleading. So when the Osage initially refused to sign, the local settlers prepare for war. The Osage are in their town meeting, and they have William Mitchell. A few episodes back, he became like the translator. So he translates what needs to be translated. And they, being the Osage, are kind of insulted by this $1.25 offer. And there's unrest. The townsfolk kind of hear secondhandly about this unrest, because I think Mr. Scott happened to ride by on his horse or something. He kind of got the vibe that the Osage were not going to do the deal. The settlers in town heard about this, and they were ready to go to war, like doing one of their little, like they did in real life. Whenever the settlers felt threatened by the natives, they would arm themselves and have like a little quote unquote war or a little battle. Luckily, Carolyn Ingalls finds out about this, and she's able to kind of piece down the settlers and be like, let's just hold off. You guys chill with your guns. We're going to let the government handle this the way they're going to handle it. So she kind of plays her part as a peacemaker here, kind of like the voice of reason, which I really enjoyed that scene, seeing Carolyn do this. As I keep saying, I really like this Carolyn Ingalls, and I'm going to stand by that.
Okay.
It's Little Puma, the same dude that helped with the horse thievery and all that. He gives a very impassioned speech here that the leader, I think his name is Joe, Governor Joe. He's like the head chief of the Osage. He lets Little Puma like spill his beans and be all brave and stuff, but I'm going to make sure that's his name, Governor Joe, because I don't want to keep saying
it is
Governor Joe.
I was like thinking of the guy from like Mad Max Fury Road. Like his name is not Governor Joe, but his name is, that guy's character's name is Joe, is like the leader of Mad Max Fury Road.
Well, this Governor Joe, he lets Little Puma give his speech, but he also is like willing to listen to, what the settlers and what the government have to say. So he's very peaceful about it. Little Puma's kind of impassioned. Governor Joe is like a stoic, strong, figure. He doesn't sign either. He drops that feather. They all walk out. They're not going to do this deal. Little Puma has a few things to say about that. He takes a hatchet and like waves it around in William Mitchell's face because he's upset about this. But all in all, they don't sign. They walk out of the meeting. And we also learn, this is interesting to me because I think we learned this from White Sun, who's William Mitchell's wife. She's okay that the deal didn't go through. She's like, the Osage come from the stars. We're traveling people. We don't have a home. We're always moving. We're always changing. So this is nothing new to us. We're going to move on and we're going to find somewhere to live elsewhere. So that was new to me. I didn't know that that's what the Osage believe, that they come from the stars, which is, White Sun is speaking to Osage lore here. Like I said, so I thought that was an interesting aspect. Yeah, help me out here, Lindsay. Anything else?
Well, isn't this, I think it resolves differently, but isn't this the episode where the Mitchells are a little bit divided on if they'll stay or if they'll go? Like there's sort of uncertainty for them.
Well,
that gets clarified in the last episode. They finally come into alignment, but here it's kind of like, I feel like maybe one of them isn't sure if they want to stay or not.
Right.
And there's sort of some division about it. But I think eventually they do decide they're going to leave and find a home somewhere else. But in episode 7, one of them wants to stay, and I can't remember which one.
It's William that wants to stay because he's established in town. He's got the house. And it's like White Son that's like, hey, we come from the stars. We're always traveling around. Let's leave out of here.
Yeah.
And the Ingalls, their role in this is Charles is invited to be part of this meeting, but he doesn't really have like a defined role in this meeting. He's just glad to be there and to be part of this, even though it doesn't turn out in an ideal way.
Well, Eli James gives him this. Eli James sells him on, this is a great moment of history,
right?
And you want to see it. So Eli James is thinking, we're going to show up, they're going to sign the papers, everybody's going to be happy.
Yes.
But that's not what happens. And there seemed to be like this thought that this was going to be, that this deal was sort of done and just needed to be signed.
Right.
And you got the feeling that wasn't, you could kind of tell they were telegraphing that's not exactly how it's going to go down, because the guy who has the most authority doesn't speak till the very end. And it was sort of aggravating, because it's like, all right, why did you wait until everybody got up and signed this paper? I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I need to like work on not laughing while I'm talking. But the fact is, he had everybody get up and sign this paper, only to him at the very end say, I'm not signing the paper. And then as a group, then they all knew, well, we're going to go with Joe because he's our chief. So I guess, why did you wait till the very end? Because we all got up and signed this paper. It's very dramatic of you, Joe.
It is. And first off, you should not change. Keep laughing while you're talking, Lindsay, because I like it. So keep doing it. And second off, there's 7 tribes here, and all 7 tribes have to be in agreement for this deal to go through. So 6 of the tribes are like, yes. And then the 7th one, represented by Governor Joe, is like, no, we're going to put a stop to this. So yeah, that's the reason that you see the other guys sign in and then Joe doesn't. And is it revealed this episode or in episode 8 that Governor Joe speaks English just fine? He just pretends he can't. I thought that was great. I love that.
Either this episode or next episode. But something that apparently did happen this episode, I don't think you've mentioned yet, which I want to make sure that is said, is that Dr. Tan has left and come back and has gotten a divorce.
Yes, from that unknown woman that he was married to. So now he's a free agent, so he should be all good, right? He should come back to town. How
quickly he was able to work that. I mean, all of that agony over nothing. And now after that, you show up with your papers and you think it's going to be all good.
Yeah, he's just going to run right into Emily's arms and they're going to kiss and it's all going to be good. I think maybe like Emily was like the impetus to him doing that. Well, I mean, I know she was, but for whatever reason, he was holding out on that for a long time. I guess he just felt like it could just linger forever. And he was just a solo man and he's a doctor and I'm never going to fall in love again. So it doesn't really matter.
This is, and I don't remember how this was set up, but I already knew that he was married because it's shared with somebody, but maybe it just wasn't shared with Miss Henderson because
that's exactly right. Yeah.
He mentions that he left and his wife didn't want to come with him, his wife and maybe even his children. So I guess when that happened, I just assumed that our marriage has been dissolved already. But then it's kind of like he never really took care of business. So, yeah.
Well, like you said, now he has. And that leads us to episode 8, which is This Is Now, buddy.
That was then, this is now, Dr. Tan.
That's right. So yeah, this is the episode where they're desperate to clear their debts. This is when Mary, when she's helping Caleb out in the Henderson store, she comes across a ledger, finds out that the Ingalls family is actually in debt. And she and Laura know that the Founders Day celebration that's coming up is going to have some cash prizes for certain things like the 3-legged race and the best essay contest and the best sharpshooter with a slingshot. And they figure if they can win all those, that they can have enough money to get their family out of debt. It's like a little kid fantasy, but I think it's very wholesome and, really, I don't know, great of them. I can't think of a better word than that. It's great. They're great girls. However, a series of financial failures and a devastating natural disaster forced the town to fracture. So what happens basically is towards the beginning of this episode, Charles finds out that the land buyer for his old home back in the big woods in Wisconsin, it's not going to happen. There's been little hints here and there that it probably wouldn't happen throughout this season, but he finds out for sure it's not happening. So he needs to do something, needs to come up with some money to pay off this house. The family's in debt. He turns to Eli James, hoping to get a job on the railroad. And Eli has he tells Charles he could like move away and like work on the railroad in a different state for a year. But Charles doesn't like that idea. Eventually, they do the Founders Day. They aren't quite as successful at winning everything as they were hoping. Laura does not do the slingshot because one of those dang James girls distracts her. Mm-hmm. They do not win the essay contest. I don't know if that was favoritism or if just straight up the James girl's essay was better than Laura's essay. It was really Mary's essay, but Mary wasn't there in time to do it. So Laura had to take over and kind of improvise an essay for the town. Because it's established also that Laura can't read exactly well, and she didn't have the written speech in front of her. So I think this kind of mirrors an episode of the original Little House where she reads a speech and just kind of like improvises it as she's going, but she's not reading what's on the page.
But I think this is where her sort of storytelling, dramatic side comes out. She's been listening to Mary rehearse, so she knows the lines and she knows how to say it, but she sort of also improvises a speech too. So yeah, she uses part of Mary's material and then some of her own personal thoughts and opinions. And it's nice. We don't get to see all of the James's, sister's speech. So we only get to hear the last couple lines. So for all we know, it was a darn good speech. But yeah. Laura, everybody's really proud of Laura, and including Mary, who she has to be proud of Laura because she and Caleb were having kisses or something. That's why they were late.
That's right. And sometimes you say something and it makes me think about something and then I forget what you said. So I forget what I thought. So there goes that idea. Oh, that's what I was going to say. It's not just this episode that what you said is true, that Laura's established as a good, storyteller. I think all through this season, at least like 3 or 4 different occasions, you'll see Laura telling stories to somebody, or there's allusions to Laura being like a really verbose person that can tell a story well. So they're kind of setting that up for us to let us know that Laura Ingalls can write.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Founders Day doesn't go great for them.
They do win a lot of the prizes, though. They, like you said, they lose 2 of the events, but they did win the race. They won some other contests, so they were on a roll, and they did get some money.
$1.10, yeah. They got $1.10.
I didn't even know the dollar amount. Jeez. But I thought this was kind of the closest thing we sort of got to. The feeling of this was closer to like the original show, like the day at the fair. It kind of had that possibility that this was just going to be a fun episode, the family doing a fun thing together and the rest of the town too. Of course, there's some dramatic things that happen to break up the events, which is what I think you're going to talk about next. The drama.
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah. Charles kind of goes to like a little roller coaster ride here where he's not sure if the family's in debt. He's not sure about the house. He's not sure about what kind of job he's going to work. And then he has like kind of this standoff with Eli James where, Eli's being even shystier than before, because before he was saying, come work me for a year. And now he's saying a year, maybe 2 years. And Charles kind of holds Eli's feet to the fire. Like, you've misled me and you've misled this whole town and you're a bad man and I'm not going to shake your hand. And Eli James is like, oh. So after that happens, that is when I believe it's Carolyn who notices first that there is a wildfire happening. You see some lightning striking while they're having like a little jam session. Everybody's dancing, having a good time. But then like some lightning strikes in a field, starts a huge fire. And the fire is massive and it's getting ready to come to town. And this is when we see, this is a classic Little House stuff. The whole town comes together. The men are digging like this trench that will break the fire. The women are like slopping like these mops all over the place, making everything wet so the fire can't ignite. And what they're doing is not really helping because the fire's coming fast and strong. And they're just at the point of just giving up and letting the town burn when, I mean, our great maker comes into play here. The wind changes direction. Nature itself changes course and the fire is abated. Everyone is saved except the town's harvest does not look in great shape. And when they go home the next day, the Ingalls family, they come home and the harvest is destroyed. It can't be saved, let's say. So this is when they have to make the decision to move on, realizing that they have to move on at this point because there's nothing else for them. What they've been working towards has been destroyed. They decide to have a farewell feast with their friends. And so Laura can actually have a chance to say goodbye to these friends that they've made this season for this past whole time that they've been here. So everybody comes together for a nice little meal together. The Ingalls give their furniture to Emily and Dr. Tan. The two of them are now kind of an item because we see them talking about wedding dates and stuff when they're having a little reunion at the end here. They give their furniture to them. I thought they were going to give their house to them at first because they were like, oh, this is so nice, but they're just giving them their table and stuff. So the Ingalls pack up everything they can, hit the road. They're really sad that Mr. Edwards didn't come around to say goodbye to them. But wait, but wait, here he is. What's Jack barking at? It's Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards rides up and is like, I just thought I'd come with you guys. And they're like, okay, where are we going? We don't know where we're going. Mr. Edwards is like, I think we should go to Walnut Grove. I got a cousin who lives there. He runs the Olson Mercantile. Let's go check that place out. So Here we go. Time for season 2, saying goodbye to season 1.
So do you think they're going back at all to
Wisconsin
to take care of their old house, or are they just?
I don't know. It seems to me like they're just going to head straight to Walnut Grove from this point. Like
That's
in
what's
real
implied,
life,
but in your timeline, you mentioned they did go back
for 2 years. They go back to Wisconsin and they live in the big house in the woods for 2 years before they go to Plum Creek. Mm-hmm. It looks like they're kind of doing a little bit of a remix here, but the original show also did a remix because in the original show, when they leave the little house in the big woods, they already have Carrie and they arrive to Independence and Carrie is already with them. Isn't that correct?
In the show, Carrie's with them at the beginning. Yeah.
Right. So this show, Carrie is not there. And the reason she's not there is because she's born in Independence, which happens here. And then they go back to Wisconsin and then they go to Plum Creek from that point. I think we're skipping the whole Wisconsin storyline unless perhaps I'm only speculating that this whole little crew goes to Wisconsin, takes care of some business, and then they head over to Walnut Grove.
That's what might happen in the show's lore, but maybe they'll skip that part and go straight to Walnut Grove. I can't imagine them going back to Wisconsin for a couple of years because we know they've already said Nellie Olson will be in season 2. So yeah, if they do stop by there, it'll probably just be narratively letting us know that, oh, by the way, we went and got some money for our house. Finally, we sold our house and found an owner.
One thing I really liked in this episode was a quote that comes around a couple times. Laura says it and Charles says it. Make a dream as big as the sky, but then make a plan to make it come true. So it's like his theory is like to dream as huge as you want and then plan for it to happen, which I don't know. That really resonated with me a lot. Mm-hmm. Because some people like to do one or the other. They like to make a big dream, but then don't do anything about it. Or then other people like to make plans, but they don't really have a ultimate goal at the end of their plans. So I don't know. It just resonated with me. It's the old 1-2 punch.
I like the fusion of this last episode having the fire break, because we had that in Lord of the Flies too. That Piggy wanted to make a fire break.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we just seen that remake of Lord of the Flies just here recently, right?
Yeah. Well, you finished it before I did, and I'm just now getting to it.
Yeah, it's a good one. I recommend that too. I don't know. Whatever. We're talking about Little House on the Prairie.
I know. I don't mean to throw you off, but I just thought that got a kick out of that. But yeah, well, this episode, it sort of wrapped everything up neatly, but I don't know. There's a lot that happens in this episode.
Yeah, we're doing a very abridged version here. Even though this is a long podcast, it could have been much longer. We could have read every single one of my notes here, and then really I'm just skimming through them because we're not doing full recaps. We're just having fun talking about this. Mm-hmm. And speaking of having fun, did you have like a favorite character or a favorite moment from this season that you wanted to bring to the forefront at all?
Yeah, well, my favorite character is Little Puma, which is your least favorite character.
That's right. I'm not a fan of that guy, but you like him. What's up with that? What do you like about him?
He's just interesting. I mean, he just established as interesting from the beginning when on that episode 2, and all the Osage people ride past the Ingalls land. He's the one that makes eye contact with Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Later,
right.
She sees him in episode 3. They cross each other on the road, and again, they kind of cross meaningful looks as if they're acknowledging, they're seeing who each other is. And he's curious about her, or maybe he just sees she's the only person who's willing to look him in the eye, So then when they kind of invade their home and start to take stuff, there's, I think he's kind of funny too. The other guy is just like kind of stealing, eating all the cornbread. And he's like, that one of those pieces of cornbread was supposed to be mine, bro. And he, he's the one that says, okay, we've taken enough. We're leaving now. So he doesn't let it go too far. So he's implied to be a kind of a pill, but he has his limits.
He's the guy that stands up during that meeting too. So like, he's probably like the town badass. Like the Osage he probably has a reputation among the Osage is what I'm guessing, because he was the one who stood up and said all the harshest stuff, I guess.
I don't think he's necessarily considered to be a leader. Like, he's definitely young. Like, maybe he's just very outspoken and has opinions. Everybody probably knows who he is. He's famous for running his mouth. And I had said that to you in our chat, that when he steals the stuff, he goes to the Mitchell's house, and we learn that White Son is his sister, and he starts unpacking all the stuff to give to her. And then she realizes, oh, he's stolen this stuff. Charles comes in and sees him, and Charles could have been like, hey, you big jerk, but Little Puma takes the stuff and leaves. So I think Charles senses he's not really a threat. Otherwise, he would have certainly been like, give me my stuff back. Like, he decides to kind of let it go because he kind of sees he's young, he's dumb, he's upset, he's pissed that we're on his property. His character is just interesting to me. And I like Indigenous characters, so I knew I was going to like, obviously Mr. Mitchell's a great character too, and White Son and Good Eagle, but I think for me, I always like those kind of flawed characters that are kind of half good, half bad. Like, they have some negative attributes, but they also are seen to be somebody that has a level of justice about them. Yeah.
Yeah. That leads over to like one of the reasons that I'm picking my favorite characters too, is like kind of the same reason. I like the questionable characters too. I do like a cool villain. We don't really have many villains in this episode, but we do have some people to dislike. And I dislike them strongly, but I also like them. The Jameses, both of them, Eli James and Gemma James. I don't like their characters, of course, but I like the actors that played them. I like the way that they were played, especially Eli. Like, he just has just that jubilant voice and just that confidence about him. And I could just listen to him talk all day. I would like totally buy his bullshit. Absolutely. I don't know. I just felt something for him, even though I don't like his character and I wanted to punch him too a couple times. I just like the way he was played. And I was very partial to Gemma James from the get go. I guess, I was kind of biased because I like the actress that plays her. But I think even despite that, I just like those type of characters. I was a big fan of Nellie Olson and Mrs. Olson in the original series because they were very fun to hate. And I think Gemma is probably the most fun to hate, even though I wouldn't say it's fun, but she does kind of have a performance that is endearing to me, that I enjoy watching. And so, of course, I love the Ingalls. I've already told you I like Laura a lot. She's probably my number one. Carolyn's probably my number two. And of course, I like Mr. Edwards. But I wanted to shout out some other people that I hadn't done yet, which is the Jameses. So I'm going to give them as my my standout characters of this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if we had a villain, it would be Mr. Kind, right? Russell Kind.
Oh, yeah. We hadn't even talked about that guy. He's like the town curmudgeon.
Yeah, he's the one, when he first meets Charles, he's like, well, look what you have here. And he's the one that picks up Mr. Edwards and puts a bag over his head. So,
right.
Yeah,
he has potential, yeah.
He's trouble.
They didn't give him a big enough role, I guess, to really be the big bad. But yeah, you're right. He could have dominated that field if he had played his cards better. As for moments, I mean, I like the Christmas episode a lot. So I'm just feeling the moment of them like being in the house together and like playing music together. You said that, I think you said episode 4 was your favorite because of the five. Okay. The action and the different, dynamics that happened there. And I liked episode 6 the best, the Christmas episode. Just for no reason other than, like you said, it was cozy and it was nice. So I really enjoyed that episode a lot. If I were to rewatch any of them, that'd probably be the one I'd rewatch. Any special moments that stand out for you?
I mean, I think I already said mine. Just that episode, the rescue of the horses.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what else is a standout moment to me. I thought the Osage Road was cool. The fact that they had this thing that Mr. Edwards showed her, this special thing, although it could be a little creepy that there's this grown man showing this girl a secret tunnel in the middle of the woods. I thought that. Yes. This is the kind of world we live in now where we see something like that and it's not sweet, it's suspicious. Uh-huh. But I think if I had any more special moments, this would probably be like becoming a favorite show. And it's really not. It's
okay.
It's not a bad show. I think it's got potential for people to like it, especially if you like, this is more historical fiction than, family drama necessarily.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to paint this realistic picture. But I think I would say, episode 5 is really, also the moment that Carolyn walks out on Gemma James. That was top shelf right there. Top shelf drama. Must see TV.
Thursday night special. Well, all right. I'm looking forward to season 2, but it's not going to happen for a long time. So I'm just going to have to hold my horses on that one and keep watching these old episodes of Little House, which I've been doing. I think I'm going to wrap this up by saying that is kind of something I'm going to be doing in future episodes. I'd like to, because in the past, I would just pick movies and I would invite on a co-host guest to discuss the movie. But I think I'm going to try to start discussing some old episodes of Little House. I'm really enjoying it. And I've already invited James McCullum on to talk about an episode. I've invited Elizabeth on to talk about an episode. So those will more than likely happen. So that's going to be my plug for now. Keep subscribed to Sweet Child of Time. If you're not listening to Sweet Child of Time right now, please do so and subscribe to it. And I'll be talking about some old episodes of Little House and probably more than likely talking about 100 Years of Solitude sometime later in 2026. Maybe. I don't know. How about you, Lindsay?
Yeah, we just found out that that's coming hard and fast. August 5th. I thought it was going to be December again. I think last time season 1 came out in a December month and found out that. But as far as me, what I want to shout out for this episode, I'm going to shout out Lord of the Flies, which I already did. But I really love that show. 4 episodes. Pick it up. If if you are okay with seeing young boys do disturbing things, you'll love it. Great music, cinematography, colors.
Colors especially. It's such a colorful show. And the face paint that the kids do, the masks that they wear are just frightening. Yeah. They're frightening. It's visually stunning. It's a great show.
And they have the making of Lord of the Flies. I don't know if you took the time to watch that, Steve. It's very interesting. You always like those making of specials that are on Netflix. So getting to see the boys, how it was for them on set is very interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I want to see a making of The Little House 2026. Maybe we'll see one of that one day.
Maybe.
But yeah, those are our plugs. Lord of the Flies, Sweet Shot of Time, and One of My Stories. So yeah, thank you very much for doing this with me, Lindsay. I very much appreciate it. I know it was I had a gun to your head to make you do this with me, and you succumbed. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll have some more interviews. There's, our press team said there might be more interviews closer to when the show comes out. So we'll see.
I mean, if you invite me, I will come. Yes. So yeah, until next time then, I guess, everybody, I hope you always find those 10 cups and water and shade and shoes. Bye, Lindsay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.